Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. 3 months, 9 deaths. Indian students are dying mysteriously in the United States. The latest is the case of Paruchuri Abhijit, who was found dead in an abandoned car in a forest near Boston on the 11th of March. Joining me in the studio to discuss this worrying trend are Mr. Robinder Sachdev from Imagindia Institute and my colleague Ajith Vijay Kumar. Mr. Sachdev, I want to start by asking you this. How worrying is this trend? 9 students dead in the last 3 months alone. Very mysterious circumstances. Ruling out the 2 suicides, 6 or 7 Indian students dying, burglaries, unaccounted for, mysterious murders. Do you think there's a conspiracy there behind their deaths?
Thank you so much. I mean, I would not think as to a conspiracy, but yeah, there could be a pattern behind these,
right.
And what could be the pattern? I think that's to be maybe investigated further. Is there a pattern of, on the issue of race? That's one thing which comes to mind.
Right.
Or other than that, what? So, but yes, in a big picture, it definitely is a very worrying trend, I think, for parents in India, especially also. To see these numbers, these statistics. On the other hand, or on the one hand, there is a growing perception in America that crime is a huge issue.
Right.
And in fact, even the presidential campaigns are slugging it out. Trump is blaming Biden for it, and Biden is, trying to counter it. However, the numbers show the various, statistics with the U.S. justice and the crime, databases have. It shows that crime is going down in America, right?
Right.
But there is something amiss. There is maybe a shift in the pattern that, crime in the cities is going down, but it's spreading more in the suburban areas and towards the rural areas. Whatever it be, that may be the overall pattern of crime or violent crime in the US. But I think for us, people of Indian origin and people of India, I think it definitely is a very worrying sign as to why is this happening. And one last point I'll say, in this other report which is out there, where perceptions are that crime is growing in America so much that it's become a matter of discussion in the presidential debates. One aspect to it is that, okay, maybe because of social media so much is being reported, so therefore people are under an impression that crime has gone up.
Right.
That's one other perspective to look at.
Yes.
But here, if we look at the numbers are very worrying for India. Like about 9 students, and from that small number of students who are out there, right? I mean, the student body of Indians in the US is not a large number whatsoever. I mean, out there about 500,000, 400,000. So these numbers are definitely very, very worrisome.
Right. Ajit, you detect a pattern in these deaths. I mean, 9 student deaths, all of them in very mysterious circumstances, found dead, out there in, mugged, all of that. You detect a pattern in this, or is it just random, deaths that are being strung together?
Right, it's too early to find a pattern in this, but then the deaths are certainly worrisome. Primarily, one has to understand that the students who are going from here and moving to America, that allure of the American dream.
Yes.
And then you reach a foreign country, different culture. So I think there is this cultural barrier also that is also impacting or not getting the students to seek help in the manner in which they should seek help there. That is one thing. And mental health, the youngsters, right, they go through a lot of mental stress.
Yes.
Particularly, when you are out there, you have spent so much money.
Yes.
To be there.
That's right.
Right. And then if you don't have that kind of a support system, that also leads to it. And the second most important and the real worrying factor here is that this whole crime scene in US, right?
Yes.
So that is also something which is completely new to an Indian.
Right.
So you reach there and you see that there is this open gun culture there, and people are shooting people left, right, and center.
Absolutely.
So for them to understand in terms of the safety parameters or the safety standards in terms of how do you keep oneself safe is completely different in US and India.
Right, absolutely. And that gun culture is a very worrying aspect of that, Ajit, as you correctly pointed out. There's several of these cases where there have been, students have been shot. In fact, in Paruchuri's case as well, he was found.
I also want to point out that famous case of Janvi Kandula.
Yes.
So she was knocked down by a cop.
Yes.
And then he was let go of
So
just
a few days ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And such cases also don't help.
Right.
At the end of the day, when it comes to the Indian community there, particularly the students,
Yes.
right? So when they know that, or when they feel that the US system is not helping them,
Yes.
come to terms with that whole change from India to US.
Right.
So I think that is also aggravating the matters. But then it is true, premature to kind of find a pattern here.
Right.
But
right.
I think we should work on the background in terms of how do we sensitize our students who are there,
Yes.
or who plan to go there.
Right, right. Mr. Sachdev, the MEA just recently released a statement where they said that 403 Indian students studying overseas have died since 2018 in the last 6 years. That seems to be like a large number, but that's spread over 6 years. And there's a very large Indian student population studying overseas. And Canada surprisingly tops with 91 deaths. It's one of the most popular destinations for Indian students. But the MEA spokesperson says that these numbers need to be looked at in relation to the total number of Indian students Canadian in studying in Canada. What would be your advice to the parents of these students, who are so concerned about the safety, the well-being of their wards in the US? What would be the rules of the road that you would kind of advise them to follow?
Thank you so much. It reminds me of a specific example which I can give you in terms of advice, as you're saying, and what
Yes.
your colleague was just now mentioning. It came to my mind when he mentioned about sensitization. I'll give an
Yes.
example. I used to study in the US, and along with my professor was an expert on cross-cultural communications. He was
Right.
a world expert.
Right.
He used to give training to the US Navy and US Foreign Service people going to other cultures.
Right.
One of the assignments he got was by the Washington DC police.
Right.
The problem they had, the Washington DC police was, and more or less still is, mostly staffed by white officers, right?
Yes. Yes.
Now in Washington DC, definitely you have quite a good number of black Americans also.
Right.
So the white officers would pull up, let's say, a black person for overspeeding or something, right?
Yeah.
And when the officer would approach this black person, there was a huge gap in communications.
Yes.
They are both speaking English.
Right.
But the African American style of talking English is, very aggressive with gestures, non-verbal, and hey man, what man,
Yes.
whatever that, right?
Right. Right.
The white officer would think that this guy is threatening me.
Right.
And the white, as the exchange escalated,
Yeah.
and the white officer would take the first step, put him under handcuffs or, pin him
Yes.
down, etc.
Restrain him. Yes.
Restrain him, exactly. So that was something which the Washington DC police, narrowed down to, that they needed to do cross-cultural communication with
Right.
their white officers,
Right.
so that they do not mistake the verbal or non-verbal, signals.
Right.
So in a similar sense, when our students, for parents, for example, maybe out here, other than the fact that, of course, that everybody knows, look out at the, where you're doing your housing, etc., etc. That housing where you are is one topic
Yes.
I would always say.
Right.
Because not to save money, don't live in some dingy downtown areas, right?
Right.
Or don't be too adventurous, which is advice which you'll give to any student,
Yes.
any kid going anywhere, right?
Right.
So be listen all. But this aspect, I think, of cultural sensitization could definitely be something additional other
Right.
than what is already being done.
Yes.
Cultural sensitization is an important thing. Any other aspects that come to mind, Ajith, apart from what Mr. Sachdev just mentioned?
I think one important aspect that also needs to be looked upon very closely,
Yeah.
and worked on, is how can the universities help these students?
Right.
Right. So as mentioned by him, if these universities are placed in, say, suburbs,
Yes.
where people are not that much have had contact with so many
Right.
foreigners, Indians coming in.
Right.
So I think the university should play a key role here in
Right.
terms of making the students understand
Right.
the local understanding of the place in terms
Yes.
of the go areas, no go areas, what to do, what not to do.
Right.
At least for the initial 6 months
Right.
to 1 year, I think if the students were to follow the kind of instructions being given by the university, I think that would also help.
Right.
I think these students, when they reach US, they suddenly have that freedom and become too adventurous
Yes.
too soon.
Right.
I think also that is also somewhere
It's
playing.
also a culture shock for many of the
Correct.
students, Ajit. I mean, if you look
Correct.
at the backgrounds, many students come from small town India.
Correct.
They've never seen this kind of, they're exposed to hyper United States.
Correct.
And many of them get caught up in this, unfortunately. But Mr. Sachdev, anything that the government of India you think needs to do? Is it alarming enough for the government to kind of either issue a statement or, you know, reach out to universities, as Ajith was saying, sensitize parents, students, remind them of the rules of the road, especially when you're in a foreign country. Is there anything that would come to your mind?
A great point. I think one specific thing which can be done, which has come about in your
Yes.
points and the points of your colleague. See, each university has a public safety department.
Yes.
Like even in India also, you know, the university has its own, you know, internal security. And these public safety staff are
Right.
mostly guys who are on bicycles and they
Yeah.
are not armed. They are
Right.
not armed at all. That's one other important thing. And they're patrolling.
Right.
Now, but this would apply to universities which are residential, right?
Right.
Because if kids are staying in some off-campus facility, that's a different matter. But within
Yes.
the campus, so what the government of India could ask, urge and nudge, the US federal government and
Yeah.
through them the university education systems, they should, you know, put more staff in their public sector departments.
Right.
They should have more patrolling security guys
Yes.
out there, which would, you know, presence makes it feel that, you know, there is a law and order somewhere, so
Right.
to say. So I would definitely say that could be one thing which could be done and which is a concrete idea that the
Right.
public safety departments of universities, especially maybe where you're seeing more of such violent incidents we are seeing
Yes.
or patterns, they should be staffed with a larger number of public safety officers.
Right, absolutely. Public safety department, that's a very, very interesting and an important point there. So Indian students dying mysteriously in the United States, there doesn't seem to be a pattern in these deaths. 9 of them reported in the last 3 months. But as my colleague Ajith and Mr. Sachdev mentioned, there is need for greater vigil, need to follow the rules of the road, especially for all those thousands of parents and students who dream of a better life, a better educational life in the United States. And that's a story that we'll be following very closely on the News9 Plus show. Thank you very much, Mr. Sachdev and Ajith, for joining us
Thank
this
you.
evening. It's one of the biggest breakthroughs in unmanned aerial vehicle technology. The high altitude pseudo satellite. It's a UAV which is solar powered. It flies over 20 kilometers above the earth and it can stay airborne for weeks on end. Now the IAF wants this technology and several Indian firms are engaged in a race to acquire this HAPS technology. In fact, one of them has already signed a joint venture with a foreign company to bring these HAPS platforms into India. And joining me in the studio to discuss this are UAE expert Group Captain Narang and my colleague Nivriti Mohan. Over to you first, Nivriti. Since you've broken the story, tell us what we are seeing right now. What is this platform and what's the significance of this visual that we are seeing on this background?
First of all, this is the visual that we have acquired from Veda Aerospace, who has signed a partnership, entered into a partnership with a UAE-based
Right.
company. So this is HAPS, High Altitude Pseudo Satellite.
Right,
It is like a bridge between a drone and a satellite.
right. So
Because
it comes
is
in the space between a satellite and a drone.
Drone, yes,
And
because
this
drone
is
cannot
the
fly.
curvature of the earth almost. It's flying at about 20 kilometers.
Yes, it is at an altitude of 20 kilometers. This is the altitude where a drone cannot fly.
Right,
And satellites are above this altitude.
yes.
And it is, if we consider the importance of this vehicle,
Right.
we can say that it is as important as a satellite and as promising as a satellite because
Yes.
of the altitude that it achieves.
Right, right.
And it has a surveillance capacity
Right.
as good as a satellite. And most importantly, it doesn't cost us much as a satellite costs because
Right.
it needs a launcher.
Right,
Through a rocket it is launched into the space,
Yes.
but we don't need a launcher for this.
right.
And it is low cost as far as if we compare it with the satellite.
Yes.
And it covers the space which is between a drone and a satellite.
And you know, I want to bring in Group Captain Narang on this, sir, because you're a UAV expert. We've been speaking a lot about this. You know, tell us about the importance of this technology that we are seeing. Why is everyone, every country in the world literally chasing high altitude pseudo satellites?
See, you understand that satellites normally operate at 200 kilometers
Right.
and above.
Right,
Now, if you have to send a satellite to the space, it requires a lot of funding, a lot of technology effort is required.
right,
and they are operating at very high speed.
Yes.
So their coverage of that area is for a very short duration.
Right.
And then if you are operating a UAV, let's say MALE or HAIL UAV, it is
Yes.
operating in weather. So it
Right.
is always impacted by weather, whether it can take off or not take off.
Right.
But these kind of platforms will fly above the where the weather will
So
exist.
he's flying above the weather
Weather.
patterns,
Weather
right up.
will
See the
remain
clouds
below that.
below.
You can actually see the cloud. That's correct.
Correct.
Yes.
So it is well above it. If you
Right.
compare it with the civil airline, it is double the height of civil airline.
Right.
So when you look at those altitudes, there is no weather.
There's no
Once you have climbed beyond a weather,
Right.
you will be able to remain airborne.
So I remember a few years back, the IAF had a very radical aircraft, very exclusive aircraft called the MiG-25 Foxbat R.
Yes.
And that was a stratosphere skimmer, as they called it.
Yes.
Would it be correct to say that this could actually replace the MiG-25, as in it would be ground launched and retrieved very quickly? And does that fill the gap?
No, you can't say it fills the gap, but it provides a capability.
Right.
See, the MiG-25 could fly at a very high speed.
Right.
So, it could fly at almost 3 times the speed of sound if
correct.
required.
Right.
So, it could give you fast particular area capability.
Right.
But this will give you persistent capability for days and weeks. If you
Right.
have an area of interest like Galwan conflict,
Yes.
you could keep it airborne for days and weeks.
For days, that's
and
right.
you will not be bothered, whether you have a surveillance system in airborne or not.
Right.
The second area is Indian Ocean region. If you look at
Right.
Indian Ocean, it's a huge area.
Yes.
So you cannot keep a manned aircraft airborne for a long period. And if
Absolutely,
you have a
they'll
bad weather, they cannot get airborne.
Right.
Now this machine will remain airborne and when
Yes.
required can come into action.
Right, and he's solar powered, and it's got solar cells on its wings.
Yes.
And that's what powers the.
Yes, the challenge when you send these machines to those altitudes, the challenge is they have a limited payload carrying capability.
Yes.
They are at slow speed. They have a
Right.
huge wingspans.
Right.
But that's the you have to do the compromise to meet your operational requirement.
Right.
So it's an asset which all over the world people are trying to exploit. It is an area or a technology
Right.
which was not possible in the past, but it has become possible.
Right.
And India is not behind it. Remember, Indian Air Force launched the IDEX competition
Yes.
under Open Challenge 1.
Right.
Now, this is a departure from past practices of Air Force, where they were used to acquisition of technology.
Right.
Here they allowed or invited the industry to come up with innovative solutions.
Right.
So one of the Indian company, New Space Research and Technologies
Yes.
Private Limited, a Bangalore-based company, they
Right.
came up with this project. We can develop this technology.
Right.
And Indian Air Force mentored them under Open Challenge 1.
Yes.
And they recently demonstrated operations up to 20 hours plus.
Right.
But this was done at a low altitude. Remember, technology is a spiral development
Yes.
process.
Yes.
So we had demonstrated the capability that we can develop a platform which can remain airborne based on solar power, remain at a certain height. The
Right.
next phase is taking it to the stratosphere level, because the
Right.
trials were conducted in the airspace,
Right. Within the atmosphere.
Within the atmosphere.
Yes.
The next phase is stratosphere.
take it to
and
the-
here I will
yes.
compliment the Indian Navy.
Yes.
Once this prototype has been proven, Indian Navy has accepted the challenge
Yes.
in the Open Challenge 9. In fact,
Right.
it was done this month itself.
Right.
And now New Space Research Technology will not only develop it,
Yes.
will supply them an operational platform for further induction.
Right.
And I think one aspect we need to understand is the QRs are not rigid.
Yes.
They are willing to work with the developers to meet the requirements which Indian Navy will need in the
Right.
times to come.
Right.
And I think that's an opportunity for Indian industry to come up.
Right.
Here, if you allow me to tell me, a public sector entity, NAL is also
Yes, they're also in this
demonstrated a
race. Absolutely.
8.5 hours demonstration, flying demonstration.
With CSIR.
With CSIR.
Yes.
CSIR lab, it's one of the
Right.
CSIR
But
lab.
Nimriti, I want to bring you in on this point because you've been covering drone development, and that series that you brought out on the IAF's drone challenge, the Meher Baba Swarm Drone Contest.
Yes.
Is this a byproduct of that contest where a whole lot of private sector champions were, funded and encouraged, whether it's Veda or it's New Space, all of them came out of this contest?
Yes, you won't be surprised. You are also saying this, that both the companies who are working on HAPS right
Yes.
now, they are the product of Meher Baba Swarm Drone
Yes.
Contest, and they they participated in the contest and they bagged the contracts also for the swarm drones.
Yes.
Now, one thing that comes into my mind that because IAF.
So, when I look at civil drone sector, I think Indian government really brought a transformational policy in 2021 when they really changed the April 2021 policy, US policy to a drone policy, which was industry friendly. But to talk about civil military fusion, if we compare it with the US and EASA, I think we still need to have a Atmanirbharta policy in the civil industry. Secondly, we need R&D programs to integrate these civil drones in the Indian airspace. We also need a program of such R&D initiatives where enabling technologies, if you understand, if you recollect, a lot of our components are being imported. If you have to make those components indigenously, somebody has to do the hand holding the way we have a positive indigenization list in the military. If we have a policy where it is followed by all the ministries, in the you talk of agriculture, you talk of Swamitwa scheme, you talk of medical. If we adopt these policies, we can really achieve. So the short answer is not yet, but I think it's an opportunity. We need to look at it. We need to look at a reforms where we have a national civil drone Atmanirbharta policy, R&D initiatives to integrate these drones.
And civil military fusion as well.
Civil military fusion is needed.
Group Captain Narang, we were speaking earlier about how the Indian armed forces were actually behind the UAV race in a sense that, countries like Iran, which made a lot of investments, early investments, are now reaping the rewards of that. China is, of course, a drone superpower, and so is Turkey. Do you think that with HAPS, we get a chance to be level with the rest of the world? Because we are kind of, at the frontier of this technology. We are, literally every country in the world is trying to achieve the kind of, the performance that this HAPS has demonstrated. Do you think we have a chance now with HAPS to catch up with the rest of the world or even lead the world?
So I'll say lead is still far away, but there are two major programs which have really made the difference. One is the Meher Baba competition.
Yes, of course.
When we launched, when Indian Air Chief launched on 8th October 2018, it was a very aspirational program. Remember, after independence, we never had a program where we ever decided to develop a technology which was at par with the world.
Absolutely.
Like, even if you talk of space, those technologies existed and we caught up. But swarm technology, even world was devolving. So I think swarm brought a change in mindset of Indian military that we can develop niche technologies.
Absolutely.
And HAPS is the carry forward of that. And I think compliments go to both Indian Air Force and Indian Navy, where they are looking at these futuristic technology, hand-holding some of the startups and MSMEs, and then helping them in the design, development, testing, certification process. Now, certification is still a challenge because most of our certification entities are used to certifying where existing standards exist. So, in these two technologies, they have to really work with the Indian startups and form those standards which tomorrow will be our asset in the times to come.
But full marks, Group Captain Narang, to the Indian Air Force for taking that first jump in this direction, as you mentioned, with swarm drone technology way back, 6 years back, when it was still in its very nascent form. But we have a chance now to catch up with the rest of the world and who knows, even lead with technologies like the HAPS, the high altitude pseudo satellite.
Full marks to you. Just little above 10 crores, and now they have turned the industry into thousands of crores. 1,000 crore with industry
potentially worth tens of thousands of crores. But thank you very much, Group Captain Narang, for joining us this evening, and my colleague Nivriti for breaking that story. One of the first rare visuals of HAPS owned by an Indian company that's out there in the stratosphere. And you can download the News9 Plus app and watch Nivriti's exclusive story on the IAF's Shark Tank contest. She tells you how the Air Force invested just a few crores and created an entire swarm drone ecosystem for India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Download and watch. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has set out an ambitious target of winning 400 Lok Sabha seats for the NDA. Can the NDA achieve it? The BJP-led NDA faces a tough fight from regional parties in some of the key states, especially vulnerable yet crucial states like Bihar and Maharashtra. Now, both these seats account for 88 seats. That's 8 seats more than UP, which contributes the largest number of seats to the parliament. Now, the BJP's mantra right now seems to be to regain, attain and maintain. But what about the India bloc? Joining me to discuss this are senior journalist Reni Abraham and my colleague Brajesh Pandey. Reni, Bihar, Maharashtra, we've discussed this in the past as well. Big cause of concern for the BJP? 88 seats, alliances still being formed?
Certainly. And tactical maneuvers being employed already,
Right.
particularly if you look at Bihar.
Yes.
They have strategically chosen to deploy Chirag Paswan
Yes.
to square up against Tejasvi Yadav. I mean,
Right.
that's the first, loud action that one can see from
Right.
out of Bihar. And that has been done strategically to
Yes.
cut down the RJD
Right.
impact in
Yes.
forthcoming Lok Sabha.
Right. But Brajesh, Maharashtra's a bigger cause for concern, is it not?
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you look at both these states, why the BJP is going all guns blazing is because in Bihar, along with the alliance of JDU, they had won 39 out of 40.
Right.
And in Maharashtra, they had won 41 seats out of 48.
Right.
So if there's a significant dip in these two states,
Yes.
it wreaks havoc with the 370 numbers which the Prime Minister, the target which the Prime Minister has set
That's
for its
right.
cadre and the leaders.
Yes.
But the biggest problem with Maharashtra, which is happening right now, Sandeep, is that despite so many permutation and combination in play,
Yeah.
despite the fact that the Shiv Sena has been vertically split into like 70% going to Eknath Shinde and 30% to Uddhav Thackeray, and
Right.
NCP also similar way, the
Right.
BJP is still not very sure and confident
Yes.
that they will be able to win, or the coalition will be able to win or repeat the performance of last time.
Right.
And that is the reason why we saw the kind of treatment which was meted out
Yes.
or accorded to Raj Thackeray in Delhi, where he went, he was picked up by Vinod Tawde, went and sat
Yes,
next to
absolutely.
Amit Shah, which is like the as top as you can get.
Too many cooks spoil the broth. I mean, you're looking at two coalitions in Maharashtra. You have the MVA with 3 partners, you have the NDA with 3 partners, and now you have a 4th partner, the Vanchit Bahujan Aghadi. Prakash Ambedkar has joined the MVA, and Raj Thackeray has jumped into the NDA camp. So, I mean, how long are these maneuverings going to continue?
I think there's also one thing which we are getting to know from the ground is that unlike last time,
Yeah.
this time the difference or the margin of votes is not going to be phenomenal.
That's
so
right.
we are not looking at barring few seats that
Yes.
the difference is going to be like 2 lakh vote or 3
Right,
lakh vote.
right.
And that is the reason why there is a engineering and there's a re-engineering
Right.
on every single seat possible, because BJP,
Yes.
apart from the mega confident show that they put up, BJP
Right.
is also acutely aware of the fact that that the Shiv Sena Shinde is not getting the kind of support they had initially
Right,
thought.
right.
They fear the maneuverings of Sharad Pawar, who's a legend in Indian
Yes,
politics.
yes.
And that is the reason why even if it comes to one seat where you can run a Thackeray versus Thackeray kind of a
Yes.
situation, pitting Raj Thackeray against Uddhav Thackeray,
Right.
and trying to eat into that vote bank.
Right.
This is the reason why BJP is so overtly worried, because
Right.
otherwise, if you look into the catchment areas, BJP is right now at the apogee in almost every state.
Yes.
Rajasthan 25 out of 25, Gujarat
Right.
26 out of 26, Delhi 7 out of 7. So where are
Right.
you going to win these seats?
Right.
So the bigger challenge right now is to make sure that you retain your last performance. And
retain.
herein lies the imbroglio which they are facing with their
Therein lies
allied
the
partner.
imbroglio. And Reni, Maharashtra was once a stronghold of the BJP Sena, and now in the last 5 years there have been splits and splits and splits, and now today you're looking at what Brajesh just described as the western disturbances, right? This huge state with 48 seats, which no one's really sure which way it's going to go, and Shinde is not getting the kind of numbers that he's projected to. But explain for us this last minute entry of Raj Thackeray into the NDA and Prakash Ambedkar into the Mahavikas Aghadi.
There you are. That's the latest move that has happened in Maharashtra's politics for the forthcoming Lok Sabha.
Right.
And trust you me on this, the BJP within the party is experiencing a lot of anger, and particularly because the
Right.
seat that he is likely to be offered being South Mumbai.
South Mumbai.
As
It's very
as
prestigious
we
seat.
talk-
Yes.
Sorry. And, what has caused a lot of angst is the fact that this particular seat had been always nurtured and is believed to be the headquarters of the Sangh.
Right.
You know, and
Yes.
so from where Jaivanti Ben Mehta used to be the elected BJP
Right.
member of parliament till
Right.
1999,
Right.
and thereafter with the Shiv Sena alliance,
Yes.
twice the seat went to the Shiv Sena because
Right.
the BJP was in alliance,
Yes.
and they had to succumb to arm twisting by the Shiv Sena every
Right.
time.
Right.
If I may add to what Brajesh was saying, see,
Yes.
the last two Lok Sabha elections, we saw the BJP and the Shiv Sena
Yes.
fighting in an alliance.
Right.
The only time they fought against each other
Yes.
was immediately after the 2014 Lok Sabha elections,
Yes.
when for the state assemblies, they fought against each other.
Right.
The BJP then had been able to secure 122 MLAs,
Yes.
whereas the Shiv Sena was able to secure 63 MLAs,
Right.
in a straight fight against
Yes.
the BJP. And a couple of years later, they once again fought, although they were in an alliance government, they fought against each other for the BMC elections, the
Yes.
Brahan Mumbai Municipal Corporation elections, where the Shiv Sena had this edge over BJP,
Right.
having bagged 85 corporators
Yes.
seats, and the BJP got 83. So,
Right.
when they fight against each other, it is a very neck and neck battle.
Yes, it is a neck and neck battle. But I must tell you this, Brajesh, about 2 years back, Reni and me were having this very interesting conversation in a hotel. You remember that, Reni? A
Yes,
politician
St.
had
Regis.
organized a party in South Mumbai, and we were guests there, and there were components of all the 4 parties that we spoke about in that. It was an MVA government. There was a BJP there. Shiv Sena was there. All of these, a lot of these gentlemen that you just mentioned were in that party, and nobody had the slightest inkling that 8 days later there would be a surgical strike and that government would collapse and there would be another government literally created overnight. But that's how I think the BJP has kind of been working in the last few years. But, interesting parallels with the India Shining Movement of 2004. If you remember, Brajesh.
Absolutely.
BJP went in without key allies. It didn't have the DMK, it didn't have the PMK, it didn't have the Ram Vilas Paswan on their side. They lost that election. You think Mr. Modi is being doubly sure in 2024 not to repeat those mistakes?
I wouldn't compare it with 2004 because, there's been a tectonic shift in the fortunes of the BJP, the electoral might of the BJP and the acceptance and the popularity of Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Right.
He is the most popular
Yes.
political leader, after in the last 20-30 years.
Possibly, and much bigger than what
And
Vajpayee was even in his
there's
peak.
just no comparison. There's
Right.
just no comparison between the two of them.
Right.
He's the biggest BJP leader till date. The second thing is, I think what is happening is that what the Prime Minister is trying to do is by setting up an ambitious target of 370,
Yes.
he wants to, he wants this to be his swan song.
Right.
And he does not want to lose even a single seat
Right.
to any kind of squabbling or
Right.
we could have allied with X, we could have gotten 2 more seats.
Yes.
He doesn't want to leave that to chance, and that
Right.
is the reason why, for somebody like Nitish Kumar,
Right.
who had said what not to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and
Yes.
Amit Shah,
Right.
and whether you will get my DNA checked and all that,
Right.
we all are well aware of.
Right.
He did not hesitate even for a single second to get him back into the alliance,
Right.
which was vociferously
Yes.
protested by the regional outfit.
And don't forget Chandrababu Naidu.
Absolutely, Chandrababu Naidu. They
called
parted
him,
on such bitter
yeah,
note, but they came back immediately after
Absolutely,
that.
yes.
So the Prime Minister is not leaving anything to chance. He wants this to be like, he wants to go as a leader who turned the electoral back on
Right.
the anti-incumbency factor. He's like,
Right.
this was the politician who just acted on a pro-incumbency. He kept on winning more seats
Yes.
than the last time. The
Absolutely.
last time it had won.
Pro-incumbency,
Pro-incumbency.
we've never heard of this. I just wrote about it yesterday.
And this is the reason why, he
Right.
wants to make sure that every single seat
Right.
counts. And that is the reason why, we are seeing such kind of maneuverings which are happening. He also is aware, however, of the fact that embarrassment is not that he will lose the election.
Yes.
Embarrassment is that if he doesn't get his strategy
The
right in
numbers.
Maharashtra and all,
Yes.
and if he gets less seat than
Yes.
what he got in 2019,
Right.
that would be a big embarrassment for the BJP,
and-
especially for Prime Minister.
And earlier in the day, you had the PMK coming together with the BJP. And this is another example of a party that was violently opposed to the BJP. And they've said all kinds of things about Prime Minister Modi. But as you correctly pointed out, Brajesh, this is not just politics. I would say it's real politics.
If you look at the BJP and BJP's politics, see, the cadre can say anything or the spokesperson
Yes.
because they have to say certain things. But if you look at their politics, the first and the biggest shock came when BJP allied with PDP.
Yes.
This shows that how clear they are
Right.
when it comes to coming to power,
Coming
how
to power.
ruthless they are.
Right.
You know, because the Vajpayee was not comfortable, who's considered to be a soft Hindutva.
Yes.
And Prime Minister is considered to be the mascot of hardest Hindutva you can get.
Right. Right.
And you know, they did not even hesitate for a second to come to PDP, which even Vajpayee was not that sure that, you know,
Yes.
called them soft militant
A
and things like that.
BJP-PDP
A BJP-PDP
government.
government,
I mean,
who would have thought?
Who would
So
have
that
thought?
is the
Exactly.
reason why, you know, he's just wants to make sure that when he comes to the third term,
Yes.
it should be BJP somewhere in that range, 330 to 370, and NDA alliance somewhere touching the 400 mark. So
Right,
that is exactly what he wants to do.
Rennie, these numbers look realistic. 370, 400 plus for the NDA. The Prime Minister setting these targets. As Brijesh says, he wants to retire on a high note. I don't believe he's retiring yet. There's probably going to be a Modi 4.0, but that's 5 years from now. But Rennie, coming to you.
Yeah, let me put it this way to you. There is a small little joke that's going around. You know,
Right.
okay, that like as always happens in the BJP, the big two leaders,
Yes.
Narendra Modi ji and Amit Shah, sit together and they plan out and chalk out the next
Right.
strategy of where they have to go. Or even, you know, right after the 2019 Lok Sabha, for example, they sat together and said, okay, abhi kiska hisab karna hai. You know, that's
Right.
how they take it in a structured manner.
Yes.
If I may just quickly, you know, go to what Brijesh was saying. Like I was explained this in detail about
Right.
why they did a alliance with the PDP in
Yeah.
Kashmir. You know, as I was told, while people keep blaming them and saying, oh, how could you ally with PDP? What they simply tell you is, look, we had zero presence in Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes.
And that was the whole gambit, that
Yep.
we entered into an alliance with PDP, made a presence, and look today. I mean, in Jammu and Kashmir, if you
Yes.
see the majority of Gram Panchayat presidents elected are all BJP. You
Yes.
know, so that is the political strategy of the BJP. Similarly, they did it with Mayawati, Behenji in Uttar
Yes.
Pradesh. Again, they were jilted after two years by Behenji. But what that gave them was a lay of the land of
Yes.
UP and being able to better understand it. And
Right.
therefore, in 2017,
Yes.
Amit Shah was designated to tackle UP. He went over there and said, we are going to eliminate caste from the
Right.
whole equation of politics in Uttar Pradesh.
Yes.
And that is what he was able to achieve. You know, otherwise the
Right.
MY factor, as whether
Yes.
it was Mulayam Singh Yadav or Nitish Kumar in Bihar, that was always the, you know, caste-based politics that ruled the roost there. So they
Right.
eliminated that out of the equation, and you're seeing Yogi Adityanath in his second term now.
Right.
So coming back to the joke I was talking about is that they say, ki, look, the BJP sat together and they realized, okay, look, we are going to come in for a third term without a shred of doubt.
Right.
So what next? So
Right.
that's the joke. Ki to kuch meeta ho jaye. So let's try to build a new narrative of 370. You know, that is how the joke
Right.
goes. And I mean, if you consider it, because
Right.
370 and 400 plus
Yes.
sounds too astounding and unrealistic
Yes.
consumption politically.
Yeah, 400 is that number that seems almost unachievable, Brijay. And when we were
Absolutely.
kids growing up in the 80s, 414 Rajiv Gandhi
Rajiv
was
Gandhi.
like an unachievable, unattainable figure. And today the Prime Minister's 400 par, you know. But that's all we have time for this evening. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me. Rennie, Brijesh,
Thank you.
Great insights as always. Ally trouble for the BJP, but not when Prime Minister Modi and Amit Shah are maneuvering to get 400 seats for the NDA and 370 seats for the BJP. Real politic at its finest. Thanks for watching.